I've owned the HP Reverb G2 since it was released in 2020, and I've spent thousands of hours using it. I've also been using Pimax Crystal extensively over the last 6 weeks, and the visual clarity on offer has blown me away. This video is going to compare the two headsets to see how they stack up and help you to decide which is the best one for you. The HP Reverb G2 has long been one of the most popular VR headsets for VR flight sim and racing sim enthusiasts, thanks to the impressive visual clarity on offer. Although it's been around since 2020, it still compares favourably to other options available. Coupled with the supreme comfort and attractive price point, I still think it is a great VR headset. However, since the HP Reverb G2 has been released, the competition has caught up, and there are a number of other headsets that offer better specifications, although many of them cost considerably more. I've been using the Pimax Crystal extensively for the last 6 weeks, and I've generally been very impressed with it, particularly by the incredible visual clarity, which is the best I've seen in any headset so far. The drawback is that the Pimax Crystal costs a lot more than the HP Reverb G2, so it needs to be a lot better to justify the higher price. Both headsets are great options for PC VR simulation enthusiasts, as they both offer great visuals, but they each have a number of pros and cons that will make one headset more suitable than the other for your unique situation. So let's start with the HP Reverb G2. So there's many things I love about this headset. It has excellent lenses and display panels, providing 2160 by 2160 pixels per eye, resulting in very clear visuals. It's lightweight, and the facial interface is extremely comfortable, making extended VR sessions an absolute pleasure. The facial interface creates a perfect seal on my face, resulting in no light leak at all, and the audio from the off-ear speakers is really impressive. Combined with a very attractive price point, the HP Reverb G2 remains a really good headset for PC VR content. On the downside, the FOV is relatively narrow, being noticeably smaller than many other competing headsets. The lenses are quite prone to steaming up, and it's tied to Windows Mixed Reality, which doesn't really bring much to the table. Moving on to the Pimax Crystal. Pimax Crystal boasts glass aspheric lenses that are able to provide a 125-degree FOV and QLED panels with a resolution of 2880 by 2880 per eye, providing the best visual clarity of any VR headset I've ever tried. This results in peak clarity of 35 pixels per degree compared to 19 pixels per degree for the HP Reverb G2. I was honestly blown away by the visual clarity the first time I tried the Pimax Crystal. It really is a step up in quality. Although we're still not close to the 60 pixels per degree that are required to match 2020 human vision, the increase in visual clarity makes a big difference to me when playing flight sims like DCS World and Microsoft Flight Simulator. No more leaning forward to read the cockpit instruments or straining to see enemy aircraft in the distance. In addition, the Pimax Crystal has eye tracking and dynamic foveated rendering, which allows the display resolution to adjust depending on your gaze, reducing hardware load and improving performance. Eye tracking also allows automatic IPD adjustment, which is a feature usually only seen on high-end VR headsets. The downside to all these features and impressive visual clarity is that it costs more than twice the price of the HP Reverb G2 at $1,600, although they do have a dedicated Crystal Sim limited edition that drops the price to $1,450 and comes without controllers. They're also offering an $800 trade-in deal for people who upgrade the Pimax Crystal to the upcoming Pimax 12K headset. As a result of the uncompromising focus on visual clarity, the Pimax Crystal is a heavy and bulky headset. It weighs 960 grams and it's quite front heavy, so you do feel the weight when wearing it, particularly after long sessions. The head strap and facial interface do a reasonable job of ensuring a comfortable fit, but it's nowhere near as comfortable as the HP Reverb G2. I can and do use the Pimax Crystal for hours at a time, and I never have to stop due to discomfort. but I do wish the comfort level could be improved. The other drawback for PC VR sim fans is that the Pimax Crystal also has a standalone mode, necessitating a rear-mounted battery to be on board at all times, and additional complexity that really anybody who's only doing PC VR content gains no benefit from. Both of these headsets have a lot of excellent points, but also a number of drawbacks. As a result, the right headset for you will depend on your individual priorities. If you're looking for a good VR headset for PC VR content that is particularly suited to VR flight and racing sims, the HP Reverb G2 is still a great choice that you can safely buy and know that you're going to get many years of use and satisfaction from. On the other hand, if you prioritize visual clarity and you're willing to pay the higher price and put up with some drawbacks, then you will get immense pleasure from using the Pimax Crystal. If both headsets were the same price, I would tell everyone to go for the Pimax Crystal, even though it's not a perfect headset. The price differential makes it a much more nuanced decision. Let's take a look at some of the key features of both of these headsets to see how they stack up in comparison. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe to the channel, as I'll be bringing you more in-depth content on the latest VR headsets and games every week. So let's talk about the visuals of these two headsets. Both headsets have terrific visual clarity and they're a pleasure to use. The HP Reverb G2 was the undisputed king of clarity for quite some time after it was released, although it has now been surpassed by a number of other headsets. Whilst the Pimax Crystal has clearly superior visual clarity, better lenses and display panels, and a wider FOV, both headsets provide visuals that enhance the experience of VR rather than detracting from it. Neither headset has any discernible screen door effect, but the HP Reverb G2 does have some God rays as a consequence of using Fresnel lenses, although these aren't too distracting and not as bad as quite a number of other headsets. Although there appears to be a huge difference in the pixels per degree and therefore the clarity between these two headsets, I can definitely say that the level of clarity that the HP Reverb G2 provides is good enough for most people. If you're getting your first headset or you're not sure how much time you will spend using it, I would highly recommend opting for the HP Reverb G2. Every time I put on my HP Reverb G2, after coming from the likes of the Quest 2, I'm extremely impressed by the level of visual clarity. At this price point, it's hard to think of a headset that will provide better visuals. Despite the HP Reverb G2 having good visual clarity, the Pimax Crystal blows it out of the water in this department. The combination of glass aspheric lenses, QLED display panels with 2880 by 2880 resolution per eye, 125 degrees of FOV, and a large sweet spot provides visuals that are superior in every way. They allow me to see everything in the cockpit and in the distance when using flight simulators, which makes the whole experience much more immersive and satisfying. This level of visual clarity isn't strictly necessary to enjoy VR, and the improvement does come at a significant financial cost, but if you can afford it, the difference is very much worth it. Field of view and sweet spot. The HP Reverb G2 has a relatively narrow FOV of 98 degrees horizontally, and this does restrict your view to some degree. The 125 degrees of FOV of the Pimax Crystal definitely feels bigger, but it's not a massive jump, and your peripheral vision is still restricted to a degree while using the Pimax Crystal. I don't think it's worth upgrading to the Pimax Crystal just for the increase in the FOV, as it's a step up rather than a revolution. The HP Reverb G2 has a relatively small sweet spot in the centre of the lenses, where everything is perfectly clear, and you do need to ensure the headset is positioned correctly on your head. If you let your gaze move from the centre of the lenses, the visual clarity drops off pretty quickly. Although the Pimax Crystal has a much larger sweet spot, it does require you to carefully position the headset to ensure that your eyes are in the centre of the lenses. If you don't do this, you will experience a type of distortion called barrel distortion. This is an issue that is most apparent in headsets that use aspheric lenses, but it can be avoided by ensuring the headset is positioned carefully and that the head strap is tightened sufficiently to prevent movement while in use. As long as you put your Pimax Crystal on correctly, you can gaze around with your eyes and the image that you see will remain very clear for a considerable portion of your vision. On to comfort. This is one area where the HP Reverb G2 wins hands down. The HP Reverb G2 is undoubtedly one of the most comfortable headsets that I have ever used, and 3 years on I still haven't used a more comfortable headset. It fits perfectly on my face, the padding feels great, and there's no light leak at all. I love the design of the head strap on the HP Reverb G2. The flip-up design means that you don't need to adjust the fit each time you put it on. You just hold the face gasket up to your face, ensure it's positioned correctly, and pull the head strap down over the back of your head, making it easy to take on and off in a second. Pimax Crystal is a more difficult headset to achieve a comfortable fit, and part of this is due to it being quite front heavy and bulky. I can achieve a reasonably comfortable fit, but it does require to be much more precise with positioning the headset and tightening the head strap. What I find works well is when I hold the Pimax Crystal up to my face nice and tightly, get it in a perfect position, loosen the ratchet wheel on the back of the head strap, pull the head strap down nice and firmly over the back of my head, and then tighten the ratchet wheel on the head strap as really quite tightly so that the headset is kept nice and firmly against my face. The only problem with this is it often leads me to wear the Pimax Crystal a little more tightly than would be ideal for comfort. The facial interface material is soft and comfortable, but the overall comfort level of the Pimax Crystal is just okay. You will need to adjust the head strap of the Pimax Crystal every time you take it on and off, and as there is no pass-through mode, this does make it a bit annoying when you have to take the headset off just to press a few buttons on your keyboard, only to have to go through the process of readjusting it again. Controllers and tracking. Both the HP Reverb G2 and the Pimax Crystal use inside-out tracking, and both headsets have 4 cameras positioned on the headset to track movement of the controllers. When each headset was released, there were some issues with the controller tracking that impacted performance, but both have improved and they're now very good considering they use inside-out tracking. The HP Reverb G2 has seen significant improvements to its controller tracking over the last 3 years, and I would say it's really quite good now. When I started using the Pimax Crystal controllers, the tracking was very good when I kept my hands in front of the headset, but it was really very poor as soon as I lifted my controller above my head or behind my back. And actually this made games that utilised these kind of controller movements almost unplayable. Thankfully, actually, there have been a number of updates to the software just in the last few weeks, and there's actually been a dramatic improvement in tracking. When I did my original review of the Pimax Crystal, I was complaining about the controller tracking, and yet actually over the last few weeks, it's much better, and I'd say it's probably on a par with the tracking on the HP Reverb G2 controllers, so that's definitely a positive. Interestingly, the Pimax Crystal also has an optional Lighthouse tracking faceplate accessory that you can purchase that allows you to use external tracking stations. I haven't tried this, but it's great to have this option for people who already have tracking stations or those who just really want to use external tracking, which we know is still better than inside-out tracking. I don't think you'll have any major issues with either headset in terms of tracking within the limitations of current inside-out tracking technology. In terms of controller design, the HP Reverb G2 controllers are starting to look quite dated. They are much more bulky and less ergonomic than the Pimax Crystal controllers and don't really stand up to the controller design of most modern VR headsets that have been released in the last 2 years. Having said that, they still work well and I'm happy to use them. The menu buttons are positioned a little too conveniently to be pressed inadvertently with the base of your thumb, and I've ended up on the menu screen unexpectedly numerous times when playing certain games. The Pimax Crystal controllers look and feel like Quest 2 controller clones, although they have integrated batteries and they do feel much lighter to hold. The build quality is pretty good, and overall, I enjoy using them. Setup and performance. Setting up and using the HP Reverb G2 is pretty easy, with just a few steps to install it and calibrate your room. The HP Reverb G2 is tied to the Windows Mixed Reality platform, which is a bit of a shame as it really doesn't serve any purpose at all. Whenever you start the headset, you enter the Windows Mixed Reality home environment. I then just minimize this window on my desktop and launch Windows Mixed Reality for Steam VR to enter the Steam VR home environment to play all my Steam VR content. And I also play a lot of DCS World with my HP Reverb G2, and I simply launch DCS and it loads directly into VR mode. The Pimax Crystal is launched via their Pimax Play software that you download and install on your computer. All I do to start using it is launch the Pimax Play software, turn on my headset, click the Launch Steam VR button within the Pimax Play software, and then put my headset on. It's really been excellent and it's worked flawlessly for me ever since I got the headset 6 weeks ago, and it makes the process of playing VR games very, very simple indeed. I am aware that some users have experienced some technical issues with Pimax Crystal when it was first launched, but I think most of these issues have been ironed out, and I certainly haven't had any major issues. Pimax does have a habit of launching headsets and software as soon as they can, often at the expense of polishing any rough edges, and I don't think this is a great strategy on their part, as it often gives people a negative first impression of their headsets. It would be much better to hold off launching new headsets or software until the vast majority of issues are resolved. I do think Pimax has been listening to feedback from the PC VR community, and I think the launch of the Pimax Crystal represents an improvement over previous headset launches. Sound performance. Both the HP Reverb G2 and the Pimax Crystal use off-ear speakers, and I've been impressed with the sound quality of both. I think the Valve Index was the first VR headset to use this type of audio solution, and it offers a lot of benefits. Both headsets allow you to position the speakers right over your ears, and I've generally found the audio quality to be impressive. You retain the ability to hear sounds and communicate with people in the real world, which I think is quite nice. I'm certainly not an audiophile, and some people feel that having the option to use your own headphones is better, but for most people, this solution is convenient and performs well. I honestly couldn't pick which headset provides better audio, as they offer very similar performance. Value. The headset that you ultimately end up choosing will depend on the amount of value that you will get from each one. I think it boils down to something quite simple. If you want a solid PC VR headset that will provide great performance without having to spend a fortune, the HP Reverb G2 is an excellent option, even as of right now towards the end of 2023. If you're keeping an eye on your budget, or if you're not already a hardcore VR flight simmer, the HP Reverb G2 is the better headset to choose. You can easily use and enjoy it for the next few years, and then upgrade in a few years when both of these headsets will have been surpassed by newer technology. However, if you're already a dedicated flight or racing sim enthusiast, and you're looking for the best visual quality in a VR headset that you can get today, the Pimax Crystal is a brilliant choice, and probably the best one, in my opinion, to go for. The Pimax Crystal does come with a few compromises and drawbacks, but the immersion and visual clarity that you experience with it is totally worth it. Yes, it's expensive, but then again, so is a high-end monitor or even a triple monitor setup, and buying flight and racing controllers and other accessories is expensive too. So if you're willing to pay the money for the best visual clarity you can get in a VR headset today, then the Pimax Crystal is a great headset to choose. Thanks very much for watching this video, guys. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the next one.